Psalm 27, verse 4. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. To dwell with God, to live in the conscious awareness of his presence. That is what we long for. It's what we seek for more than anything else. Even if we're not fully aware of it, that is the core desire of our lives. I'm reminded of Jesus with the woman at the well who came with a physical thirst, and Jesus reminded her that actually what was more true about her is that she had spiritual thirst, a spiritual thirst. And so how does it happen that we dwell with God? That we live life in such a way that we are aware and attentive to his presence, not just at moments or maybe at a period of time during the day, but all through our day. You know, when Jesus was asked in Matthew 22 what the greatest commandment was, we get a bit of a clue. He summed up everything by saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And really what he was getting at there is love God with all that you are. Come before God and present to him. Give him all that you are. Now, where this can get a little bit confusing is we ask the question, well, what is all of me? We talked in the preparation to this study that often we live lives that are not integrated. Perhaps we're just living more in our head, or maybe we're very influenced by our emotions in a way that's not reflective, or we simply give in to the desires of our body. And to live an integrated life means that all the different parts are connected and we're living with a sense of awareness. Now, from the beginning of the scriptures, there's a word that's used, and it's consistent from the Old Testament all the way into the New Testament. It's the word soul. In the Old Testament, it's the word nephesh. In the New Testament, it's the word suke. And it speaks of the self, having a self-awareness. Dallas Willard does a brilliant job in his book, Renovation of the Heart, talking about the soul and then all the different parts of the soul. And he affirms that the soul is the self. It is who we are. In a very real way, we don't have a soul. We are a soul. We are a living being. And Willard in his book also makes the comment that the soul ends up being the interconnectedness between all the parts of who we are. The soul is the interconnectedness between the mind and the body and the heart and the will. And when all of those parts are working together and we're living with a sense of awareness of who we are in God's presence, that interconnectedness is what the scriptures call peace or shalom. In Psalm 23, David writes, "He restores my soul." And what he's speaking of there is that what God does is he restores or brings a completeness, a peace to our soul. Whereas we have a tendency to live a disintegrated life, he brings integration and wholeness. Dallas Willard describes it this way. He says, spiritual formation occurs when all of the essential parts of the human self are effectively organized around God, as they are restored and sustained by him. Spiritual transformation in Christ is the process leading to that ideal end, and its result is love of God with all the heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. See, See, this week we are going to pray a prayer in which we offer all of who we are to God. We're going to start with the soul, and then the body, and the mind, and then our relationships, because our relationships are a part of our life, a part of our soul. We are so influenced and affected by relationships that really scripturally, our relationships are a part of who we are. It's a part of our identity. And we're going to pray also offering our body and our heart to God. And in the following weeks, we're going to focus on each one of those individual parts. See, these 6 weeks are going to be an invitation to slow down, to become aware of our soul, all of who we are, and then aware of who we are in God's presence, giving attentiveness with every part of who we are to God so that He can restore and sustain us. And when that happens, we are changed, we are transformed. I'm reminded of a story that I heard years ago of a group of travelers from the West who went to Africa. And they wanted to travel deep into the jungle on a journey of exploration. And so when they got to the coast of Africa, they hired some locals who would serve as their guides to take them on a journey. And so they hired the guides, and the next morning they were told that it would be a 4-day journey to reach their destination, to the heart of the jungle. And so these men with the guides began to travel on that first day, and at night they stopped. And the Westerners realized that they had made it about halfway to their destination, and they got excited and they thought a 4-day trip is suddenly going to turn into a 2-day trip. And so excitedly they woke up the next morning and they went to their guides and said, "Let's go." And those local guides would not respond. They just sat there, being agitated, kind of confused. These Westerners began to prod and cajole and try to get their guides to get up and get going. And then the translator looked at them and translated what the guides were saying, and essentially what was said was this: "We traveled too fast on our first day, and so now we wait so that our souls can catch up with our bodies." See, part of what plagues us in our Western world is that we go so fast. We don't stop, we don't slow down, and so we very often live without an awareness of who we are. And therefore, we lack an awareness of who God is and bringing all of who we are to Him. And so even though we desire to dwell with Him, because we don't slow down, we often just get little tastes every now and then, but it's not a part of our daily moment-by-moment existence. So again, this study, Dwell, is an invitation to stop, to slow down, and each day to pray a prayer. And this week it will be a prayer of the soul. Now I want you to listen to these words from Romans chapter 12. "I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship." See, that's our worship, is to present ourselves to God, each part of who we are.